couple of minutes and review the first skill that we learned. Today primarily we're talking about the 19 brain skills. And so last time we talked about shared joy. And I just want to say that I am so blessed that you all showed up. And I'm so glad that you're here. And sometimes demonstrations are better than explanations. And so I've just demonstrated sharing joy. It brings me joy that you're here. And what happens is when you see that you brought me joy, it gives you joy. And then I'm joyful and you're joyful, and it increases our joy capacity. So that's a brief overview of skill number 1. And now, Sarah.
So I'm really happy to share this and the things that I've learned from it with you. So just to kind of give us a direction here, this is about seeking the Lord when you're overwhelmed, to obtain His validation, His comfort, and how He sees us in the situation we find ourselves in. This isn't like a how to get solutions from the Lord or something like that. We can't really obtain a solution unless we're in shalom. And this is also about being honest. So we need to get healing, to bring shalom to our emotions. We have to make sure we're being honest with ourselves, with other people, and with the Lord about the emotions that we're feeling. And then the third thing is growing in relational capacity. And I realize some of you may not be familiar with some of these brain terms. And it's okay, I'm going to explain, give you better definitions. But relational capacity is just basically maintaining your relational circuits in your brain when you're faced with a big, overwhelming circumstance. All right, so our foundation here is that God created us to be in relationship with Himself, and this is only possible through joining ourselves to Messiah, right? The only way to the Father is through the Son, and He created us to be in relationship with other people. So we know these things, we can read them, but we can also physically see them in the way that our brains were created. We have a whole area of our brain that's just dedicated to our relationships and our attachments to others. Okay, so the relational pathways in our brain, that's the area of our brain that helps us to stay connected to God and other people. Now when we get overwhelmed, these shut down, okay? So I'll give you an example in just a minute of how that happens. So when we get overwhelmed with our emotions, our body goes into kind of a stress response, right? There's like the fight or flight. Okay? That's when the people start becoming problems, and we're not so much caring about them in our relationships, we're more caring about them in like, okay, you're now a problem in my life, how can I fix you? So my example is I go to Costco, I spend an hour and a half in a long line in a full store, and I get home, I have boxes and groceries everywhere, and we unload the car, it's all over the counters, all over the floor, and the kids are like, Mom, what's for lunch? Okay, so there's 2 options here, right? We can have the overwhelmed option, which is where I'm going to now overwhelm the children with my emotions. Don't you see all this stuff that's laying all over here? I have to put all this stuff away. There's meat, there's this, there's that. So I in turn overwhelm them. Their feelings are hurt, and right, that doesn't go very well. And then my other option is to not be overwhelmed, which we're going to talk about how to not do that. And just stop and have the response where your relationship with them is still intact, and you're not turning them into a box on the counter to be put away or fixed or attended to. Everybody with me? Relatable? Okay. Okay, I have lots of notes and pencil, so I'm navigating how to do that. All right, so like I said, we have those 2 options. Now, if I decide to turn my kids into a box on the counter, one of the problems with that, other than hurting my relationship with them, is I still have that mess of overwhelmed feelings to deal with. So I'm now a box on the counter, and so are my feelings. So I'm going to go, what I would normally do, overwhelmed, would be like, let me go get some chocolate in the cupboard so that I can now deal with this problem, okay? So we all have these little things called cravings, and Marie's going to go more into our cravings, and they're called beeps. But our cravings, when we do them, it helps satisfy that relational part of our brain. It releases some chemicals so we can now be calmer and we can, trudge on. Some of the other cravings like that I experience or beeps that you're trying to soothe yourself, like you get kind of restless or, oh, let me check my email again. Close it down. Oh, let me check my email again. Like nobody gets that many emails a day that you really need to do that. But it's just kind of this way of your brain trying to get attached and feel better. Okay? All right. Now, the next thing, so I'm going to address here, I'm going to address it later, is honesty. Okay, so one of the things with coming into an overwhelmed state is being honest and really realizing the feelings that you're feeling. As adults, it's really easy, and we can even call it maturity, though I don't know that it is, well, I'm feeling this certain way, but these people are depending on me, so now I need to pull myself by my bootstraps and act this certain way that I feel I'm expected to act so that I can go on. So we justify, we ignore, we sweep it under the rug, and we don't really deal with it. And the unfortunate part of that is that that's where the Lord can help us, and that's where He wants to help us, is with those feelings that we don't really want to deal with. Okay? So, moving on. All right, now here's some on your list. You have a list of things that show that you're overwhelmed. The first one is, let me see if I can find it up. All right, I just want to make a problem, person, or a feeling go away. I don't want to listen to what others feel or say. Okay, so think of yourself when you've been angry or upset about something. Okay, everybody can relate to these feelings. Like, I don't really want to be around you right now. I don't really want to be around anybody. I just want a piece of chocolate, or whatever it might be. Whatever your thing is that helps you to feel soothed in some way. Another one is my mind is locked onto something upsetting. So maybe it's a problem. Your little hamster wheel in your brain is going around and around. You keep thinking about this problem. Okay. I don't want to be connected to someone that I usually like. I just want to get away or fight or freeze. Okay, one is like, I want to go hide. I'm going to go hide in my office. I'm going to go hide in the kitchen. I'm going to go hide wherever it is so that I can do something or nothing about my state of feeling overwhelmed. Okay, you don't really know what to do yourself when you don't know how to connect with the Lord in these times. And the last one is I more aggressively interrogate, judge, and fix others. So another kid example, a kid gets hurt, there's their sibling, the kid's crying, you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Okay, then we tend to aggressively interrogate and judge the child that appears to be the guilty party in that, okay, part, and that's not necessarily helpful, especially when you don't really know what happened in the situation. It's easy to do with your spouse or a friend or somebody that you're close to. All right, so moving on from all those, I can see everybody kind of gets where I'm coming from with all these things. So ideally, our minds were designed to be in shalom. So they list a lot of adjectives. I got most of this stuff from that Belonging Handbook. But if you just think about them, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling connected to the people around you, okay, you feel open, you're flexible, you're interested, you're able to see your part, okay? When we're overwhelmed, we don't really see ourselves as doing anything wrong. Like it's the other person, or it's the situation, or it's the whatever, but it's hard to see our part when our brains are overwhelmed. But when we're in shalom, we can work with others to reach an understanding. We can stay connected. Even if I don't agree with them, we can still stay connected relationally. We can receive information, we can process, we can respond, we can explore, understand, and join. And the last part is creating belonging. Okay, you'll notice this. Belonging is basically hospitality. Okay, so when your relational circuits are flowing and everything's good and you're in shalom, it's easy to make a space for others just by being yourself. Whether it's, just sharing a smile with them or being encouraging or whatever comes naturally to you that makes people feel that you're happy to be around them, that's creating belonging, and it's hospitality. So we're overflowing with life when our relational circuits are in shalom and our mind is at rest. Okay, and we're connected to the Lord and we're connected to the people around us. Does anybody have any questions at this point before I move on? Okay. All right, the next part is honesty. I talked a little bit about this already, but I really felt the Lord highlighting it, and it's something that He's really pointed out to me in my own emotions and addressing them before Him and being wholehearted. It's obviously important for our relationships. It's important for healing. If you have an area of your heart the Lord really wants to touch, if you're not being honest about it, it's really hard for Him to get in there. It's important for just doing this skill. There's a practical part that you're doing. There's going to be some questions that you're asking the Lord. If you're not being honest, it's really not giving Him an avenue to get in there and really help you. All right. So in a poll of my children, I was asking them, what do you think the reason is that people lie? So when we're not honest with our emotions, it's a form of lying, right? And the response was we're afraid of getting in trouble, we're afraid of the consequences, we're afraid of what people might think. And I felt I think fear is probably one of the big reasons that we lie, and one of the big reasons we're not honest about our emotions, even with ourselves. So, I don't know what else to say about that, but when I first moved here, one of the things the Lord convicted me about was I was over at Olivia's house, and it was just a little thing, and it's not really going to sound like a big deal, but she had given me a drink, and I didn't like it, but I told her that I liked it, and she was like, I actually think you like the drink, and I was like, you're right, I totally just lied to you. Why did I do that? And whether I was just afraid of her response, or whether we just moved here, I don't really know. But it was a fear, I was afraid to tell her how I felt about it. So it's these little areas. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really is. If you're going to lie about something little, you can lie about something bigger too. So we really just want to make sure that we're being wholehearted, putting your emotions out there with the Lord, and letting Him get in there and deal with those fears. I feel like fear is just such a huge motivating factor for us. We really don't want it to be motivating in our relationships. So on to number 12. These are just my little things I wrote. So if we can't be honest, we can't receive validation or comfort from the Lord or from others. The little lies we create allow for distance between us and people. And if we're not being honest with a friend, a spouse, or another trusted individual, are we being honest with God or ourselves? So lying in this context is a form of hiding, and hiding is done out of fear. It takes bravery to be honest, and keeping secrets does not make us whole. One other example is I have is, this was just a little thing, and it's always the little ways that the Lord comforts us that's so amazing to me. So yesterday I had to miss part of Shabbat service. And it was a milestone for one of my kids. I had to go do something with them, and I was happy for her, but I was a little sad about missing Shabbat service. I'm a little sad about this, and but I had to recognize that. I had to get past the fact that I felt guilty that I was a little sad about doing this thing with her because I was going to miss Shabbat service. So I had to admit to the Lord, Lord, I'm a little sad. I'm missing Shabbat service. even though this is a really big thing for her. And I just immediately felt his comfort. Like, Lord, can you comfort my sadness? Instead of me just ignoring it and feeling guilty about this little tiny emotion, I was able to be much more wholehearted in doing this thing with her rather than not addressing this little piece of sadness. So that's that. So I would say that self-awareness is one big thing that I learned from all these different things from this belonging manual, is being aware of your emotions and not ignoring them. How are you really feeling about that? What do you really think about what this person is asking you to do? Number 13 from Psalm 51:6, behold, you delight in truth in the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. 14, just because we experience emotion we're not comfortable with does not mean we should try and hide it or replace it with something else or blame someone else for our emotions. Our emotions are our own. We want to learn to self-govern our actions and our emotions. So we're going to take responsibility in handling our emotions so we don't harm others or ourselves. So, like I just said, you're going to be learning self-awareness. Okay, we're not going to, just because we feel angry at someone doesn't mean that it's okay to justify our emotions by saying they did something to me. Well, they did. But your anger is still something that you have to deal with and take responsibility for and go to the Lord with. All right. So, number 15, shalom and appreciation. Appreciation is just thankfulness. They keep our brains relational. We can always be growing in our capacity for shalom and appreciation. As we become more self-aware and begin to govern our emotions by seeking the Lord, our responses to potentially overwhelming emotions of self and others improve and relational capacity increases. So where you are today with your relational capacity, as you practice these skills, you're actually going to grow in your relational capacity. It's not like you stay at the same level as today. So you learn these, there's some physical things that you're going to do and some questions to ask the Lord, as I said earlier. But as you start addressing these emotions and this overwhelmed stuff as it comes up, your relational capacity is going to increase. So as a week from today, if you're consistent in going to the Lord in this way, you're gonna have more capacity next week than you did this week. And 3 months from now, you're going to be like a rock star compared to where you were today. But it does take some diligence in seeking the Lord and not just hanging out in that overwhelmed state, feeding your cravings with chocolate or whatever else it is, to gain that shalom. All right, let's see here. The last thing that I had here just in my notes is Yeshua's capacity is limitless, and we can depend on his capacity for all of our pain and weakness. Right? Where we are weak, he is strong. Right? Okay. All right, number 16. So this interaction with the Lord, it's not about problem solving or complaining about the person with whom we're having the issue. We gain healthy solutions from a place of shalom, as I said earlier. And just as a reminder of what grumbling is, okay, complaining in a bad-tempered way, and complaining is expressing dissatisfaction or annoyance about someone. And what I realized when I was thinking about this is it's really accusatory. When the Israelites were grumbling and complaining, they were really accusing God. So we want to keep that in mind. We want to keep this. What I felt like when I started doing this is the interaction became very clean when I wasn't complaining about a person, but just sticking to the rules, so to speak, of how to increase your shalom. Okay. So another word for this technique is called quieting. So basically what this does is it's going to reset your relational circuits so you can actually connect with the Lord and with other people. It's going to reduce your fear and adrenaline right away. It'll activate your stress reduction system. You'll physically be able to enter a quiet place for your body and your mind. One thing I do want to address, because Kenny and I are always concerned about practicality, so you might be like, okay, so I'm standing here in the kitchen and I'm overwhelmed. Do you want me to go and leave and go spend some time with the Lord? Well, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you might actually have to stop and just take care of it rather than just saving it for later. Like I said, the more you do it, the more your capacity is going to grow. And then you may even get to a point, I don't know if this is, but for me, sometimes I can just imagine myself doing the steps and it will help restore my relational circuit so I can at least connect with the Lord and get what I need from Him. Okay, so here's the practical part. So you're all going to do this with me, because ideally you'll do it by yourself when you start to feel overwhelmed. And we know that our body and our minds are connected. So this is kind of the bridge for connecting your body and your mind back when you're overwhelmed, okay? Unfortunately, I can't remember 2 of the steps. So I can tell you, we can look them up and do them later. So there's kind of a key scripture that we use for this. And it's, whenever I am afraid, I will trust in you. Okay, so you're going to do some body movement. So the first thing is you're going to just scrunch your shoulders. Okay, we're going to do it together. Don't feel too self-conscious. We're all in this together. Okay, so we'll lift up our shoulders, count for 4. Okay, like you're really tense, okay? So really try to scrunch them up to your ears, down. And you're going to kind of throw them down. Don't hurt yourself, but. Okay. So then we're going to go up again, just count for 4, and then bring down again. And then we're going to do it 2 more times. And down, and then up again, and down. Okay. All right, the next one is, it's kind of interesting. You're going to yawn. Yawn first, forward. Right, so you're going to kind of, so you need a refresher. I know, I totally need a refresher. So just probably kind of put your head to the side, to the right, and yawn, and then to the left. And then you're going to cross your hands over your chest, and you're going to say, when I am afraid, I will trust in you. And then we're going to do it again. We're going to go to the right and yawn. And to the left and yawn. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. Okay. And then we're going to do it 2 more times. So to the right. To the left. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Everybody already sounds calmer. This is great. Okay, and then when I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Okay. Now the last part is we're going to tap, and there's actually a nerve here called the vagal nerve, vagus nerve, that's going to help really kind of solidify the connection here between your mind and your body. Okay, so you're going to tap here. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. And you give yourself a little hug. Okay, and you're going to do it again. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Okay, and last time. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Okay. All right, so that's like step 1. Okay? Get your body in line. That helps release your parasympathetic nervous system to kind of calm your stress response to your overwhelmed, whatever it is. Okay. Now we're going to talk about shalom for our soul. And then we'll actually look at the worksheet in just a minute. So, in shalom for our soul, which will be our next step, we're going to get validation by talking directly to God about our emotions and our thoughts, even though I don't perceive His presence. Okay, everybody knows what this feels like. You're like, Lord, I know you're there, and need help. I can feel your presence. Okay, we're gonna trust. Like he said, he's always with us, so he is. So I don't talk to God about the other person I'm upset with, is that's going to keep my relational circuits off. Okay, that's just like feeding the fire. We don't want to do that. We just went through all that work and yawning and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to stay in that place. And then in shalom for our hearts, we're going to get comfort by feeling sad about those things that grieve us both. And this activates our ventromedial circuits. Don't get tripped up by words if you don't fully know. It's okay. That's what I try and do. And our parasympathetic system in our brains. So to validate, what that means is that God's going to affirm our relationship and the importance of our distressing feelings as we share what we're experiencing or what we have experienced, okay? So sometimes this will come up with memories. Sometimes you find yourself, why am I thinking about this right now? This happened like 15 years ago. I haven't thought about this person in so long. Wow, I'm starting to feel a little upset about this. Okay, do your little body thing, and then you get into this questions and this experience with the Lord to help you with that memory. Or it can be something, that's happening right now. So I'm going to honestly share my upsetting situation, my thoughts, and my feelings with God, and invite Him to be with me and remind me of His presence. Okay, so I guess I can give you the example now. So I had an example of where I had to go to the dentist. I used to love going to the dentist. Actually, I was a little bit prideful about going to the dentist because I would always go to the dentist and I had this perfect dental report, no cavities, and then I had kids and then I got a bunch of cavities and then I developed some autoimmune thing and I was like, oh my gosh, I hate going to the dentist. Oh, this is terrible. Lord, they're going to tell me I have cancer. Okay, so I'm telling the Lord, I feel totally overwhelmed, right? He's going to say this and he's going to say that. So then I feel the Lord oh, okay. And then he shows me a picture of how he's the dentist, how it's his hands in my mouth, and how he's the one that's doing all the work there. Okay, great, validated. Thank you. Okay, now I feel I can go to the dentist and not be totally freaked out the whole time. Okay, so I'm going to connect with the Lord right in the middle of my distress and discover that I'm loved and accepted even when I'm upset. So he quiets us with his loving presence and affirms the value of our relationship and the importance of our feelings. The value of our pain is not removed with validation. This isn't about sweeping it under the rug. This is about just simply being validated, hey, your feelings are important to me. I care that you're sad. I care that you feel guilty. I care that you are angry. It's not that he doesn't care even when it feels like a sinful emotion. Okay, well, be angry and do not sin. This is one way to not sin. When you're angry, is just really putting it before him and asking for his validation. Yeah?
You said, I'm going to talk, feeling sad about the things that grieve us both. Are you talking about, is us, me and God, or is us, you, and the other person?
Okay, so her question was, let me just find where you're at here.
In number 3, I'm not.
That grieve us both would be us and God. So her question was about number 3, shalom for my heart, comfort by feeling sad about those things that grieve us both. The Lord gets sad about the things that we're sad about too, okay? He's with us, he experiences these things. So this kind of validation, almost like you're with a friend. My friend understands my feelings. Did that help? Okay.
I had a question too. When we're doing the I'm not afraid, does it matter if it's right or the left or left or the right?
Okay, her question was if it matters when you're doing the crossing your arms in front of yourself when I'm afraid, as if it matters if your right is over your left or not. I don't think it matters.
About the crossing.
It's more about the crossing
Okay.
than the left or the right.
It's more about the crossing than the left or the right. Okay. All right. Comfort. So we discover God's perspective and viewpoint about what we are experiencing now or have in the past. Comfort helps me see what God sees in my situation and others involved. Okay, this is called like God's sight is the term they use. Okay, it just turns it around a little bit so that it opens up our perspective so we can kind of see the whole thing a little bit better. We can start to see, oh, well, maybe that person was having a bad day. Oh, or they were overwhelmed and then I totally just came in here and asked them a whole bunch of decision-making questions and now they snapped at me. Well, I guess that maybe wasn't very good timing on my part. So it's just helpful to have his sight. So his sight is always relational. So comfort includes the truth about my situation and his heart towards me and everyone involved. God's sight always helps me recognize the difference between the way God sees things and my pain-clouded, distorted perceptions of God, myself, or others in my distressing situation. We don't think clearly when we're overwhelmed or we're having a distressing emotion. You just don't. Comfort helps us separate our distressing emotions and thoughts from the way things really are, and it always occurs after validation. So this is even in our own personal relationships. If somebody comes to you with a problem, validate and then comfort. It's hard to receive comfort if you don't feel like the person even heard what your emotions are. All right. And then the end part of this is just the growing in my appreciation and putting it in my memory for future use through strong appreciation and storytelling. So our stories are really important. So when you have these, we're going to do this sheet in just a second. When you have these experiences with the Lord, when you see this whole thing through, you're going to have a little story, a little testimony. It's really important to write those down, to share them with other people. Those start to solidify in our brain, and they build our faith up for the next time or for somebody else or whatever. But you have to keep building these stories up and remember them and share them. Okay, we good? Now we're going to do the sheet that we've all been waiting for. Okay. So it's this little chart again. Okay, so there's basically two columns to this sheet, two major emotions. And it might seem kind of like, oh, well, I experience way more than two emotions. Well, actually, when you get overwhelmed, these are the two main ones that you're going to feel, okay? So after you're doing your shalom for your body, these are the questions you're going to ask the Lord, okay? They're really helpful. I have found having a direct script, if you want, for talking with the Lord rather than just doing a big dump. That might help somewhat, but this is going to kind of help you get to that place of shalom a little bit more of a cleaner way. So the first question is, if I'm feeling angry, that's what I'm looking at, what happened that has upset me? What feels so unfair about this situation? So this isn't, notice it's not who did this to you or what did somebody say to you or something like that. It's what feels unfair about this situation. And you're going to keep telling God what feels unfair about your situation until you're also able to tell God how your body feels right now. So this whole mind and body connection is really important. So when you're thinking of like making your story, or it would kind of read something like this. Well, Lord, my shoulders are really tight. My breaths are really short. I feel like my heart is beating out of my chest. It feels hot in here right now. And these are all body things that we might experience when we're angry. I feel shaky. And then as you're telling him that, and you're telling what's unfair about this situation. Well, it's not fair that this person told me I couldn't do this, or it's not fair that I can't do this thing that I really enjoy, or whatever it might be. That's how you connect those two things. Then you're going to ask God to show you where he sees you were hurt the most. So this might be a repeating injury and brings up other hurts that you have. Then you're going to ask the Lord, what is different about this situation now that God and I are looking at things together? So often my answer for this one is, it feels good just to know that you're with me. Like I can feel your presence again. Oh, this is great. Okay. And the last part is, what do I appreciate or long for when God joins me? And I was looking over the dentist story, and the thing that I'd written is like, there's no one like you. There's no one like you that can come and be with me and make me feel comforted, validated, better. Okay, and then we're going to look over at the anxious and fearful column. So the first question again is, what has happened that has upset me? What feels threatening about this situation? And you're going to keep telling God what feels threatening about your situation until you're also able to tell him how your body feels right now. And if then, I forgot this part for the other, this is the same for the anger part. It's after 5 minutes, if you're not getting anywhere, you're still angry or you're still anxious or scared, you're going to focus on any part of the situation that feels sad and tell God how you and others have been hurt in this situation and how your body feels now. And is there any part of this situation that makes God sad? And then you're going to ask God to give you shelter. And what is different about the situation now that God and I are looking at things together? And what do I appreciate or long for when God joins me? So again, you're going to share your appreciation with God. Thanks. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for showing me that you were there. Thanks that you knew this really intimate thing about me that nobody else knew. And tell him what your longing feels like. Long for you to be with me in these situations or in these feelings. One of the reasons, so that's the end of that sheet. I think I'm about done, but I did want to, one of the reasons that I also felt that highlight for honesty was I've been doing this sheet, and I wish I had a specific story. I've been doing this sheet, and I'll find that I wasn't being honest about my feelings. Like, it'd be the end of the day, and I'll be like, oh, why am I so overwhelmed right now? This is terrible. Sit down. And I'll like be going through these different things in my mind, and there'll be this whole list of things that I swept under the rug. Like, oh, I was offended at this person because they were rude to me, or I was offended at this person because they didn't do what I asked them to do, or I didn't, wow, they didn't clean up after themselves. They had a poor attitude during schoolwork, or whatever it might be. It'd just be this whole list of things like, oh wow, Lord, it was me. Like, it was me the whole time. It wasn't just all these people doing all these things to me. It was me not governing well. It was me not being honest with you or with them and addressing these different things. So just encourage you to be honest, keep seeking the Lord with your emotions.